On a land bathed in golden, warm evening sunlight lived a middle-aged lady who ran an inn for people to rest in. She would provide her services, which included a warm bath, a comfortable room, and delicious meal for a good price on a fair trade. Upon the first look, it may seem like she was living alone, but an uncomfortable truth arises in the cold black pitch night when it is revealed that not only she would seemingly house a terrifying monster, or at least welcome it into her territory, but she will make a huge claim that the monster she's relentlessly protecting houses her son's soul after consuming it years ago, essentially becoming her son. It was a foolish claim that, if we were to guess her fate right afterwards, you would be correct. Theories began to grow at a rapid pace. Was she feeding the customers she would invite into her inn to the monsters? Or was the monster not attacking her up to this point because it would feast on the people that would flock towards her inn? The answer was never revealed. The only thing we, the audience, would get is the love that the lady had shown to the monster. A foolish act of love, but love regardless. Released back in April 1st of 2023, this anime covers two stories. One about the daily life of a student and her peers in a futuristic looking facility soaked with mysteries, and the other about a duo traveling through the vast dystopian landscapes of Japan. Both stories seem to play out differently from one another. However, they do share themes that run consistently throughout, as each information and lore that is revealed in one is mirrored and referenced in the other, an interconnected storyline if you will. There is a lot to uncover from just this anime alone, mainly its overarching mystery that sits within waiting to be solved. However, I want to tackle instead a different theme that I find way more interesting to dissect. A theme not grandiose in comparison to the story's mystery, but ever so important to the anime nonetheless. And I'd like to introduce it in the form of a question. What does an act of love look like? Okay, please don't click on this video and indulge me for a second. The best way to answer this kind of question exists in the form of the anime's second half of the story, which involves the story and dynamic of two individuals named Maru and Kiruko. Kiruko, a 19-year-old bodyguard who is tasked to protect and deliver Maru to his destination, using her analytical mind, resourcefulness, and her marksmanship to overcome hurdles, as well as to help her and Maru survive the harsh world they live in. She can be playful, very confident in her abilities to the point of smugness at times, which causes her to easily underestimate the situation she finds herself in given the circumstance. Meanwhile, Maru, the 15-year-old whom Kiruko is protecting, is a compassionate and daring young lad who may not be capable smart-wise, but can be very intuitive and perceptive when the situation calls for it. He's not afraid to defend, protect, and slash or fight anyone, and he's a certified gooner.
Bruh.
These two are practically inseparable, with Kiruko functioning as Maru's caretaker, seeing that he hasn't been taught any proper survival skills, all the while supplying the brains while he supplies the bronze. And with their skills known to each other, they both cover up each other's glaring weaknesses, while also supporting each other through thick and thin with how long they've known each other. However, at the beginning, the relationship, while strong and supportive on face value, is exposed to be one-sided as Maru is revealed to have feelings for Kiruko. However, Kiruko's earnestness to fulfill one of her tasks, which again is to protect Maru, unfortunately treats him as just an acquaintance. With that one-sided relationship only growing further in episode 2, when Maru confesses to Kiruko. Though flattered, she rejects his confession with a confession of her own. Okay, this needs way more context. Long story extremely short. Part of Kiruko's reasoning as to venturing the ruins of Japan with Maru, aside from her duties as a protector, is also due to her lifelong mission of locating two men that were very important in her life. One of which is a man named Robin, an individual who hosted kart racing matches while being one of the protectors of the orphanage she lived in with the other kids, along with her sister Haruki, and the other, and more importantly, a doctor named Dr. Sakura, who was responsible for transferring Kiruko's brain into her sister's body, as they both met their demise through a gruesome and tragic circumstance. There's a bunch of information I left out, but that's the general gist of it. This is where today's topic comes to play. While Dr. Sakura plays into a tangible, physical goal that Kiriko wants to accomplish, Robin represents her intangible and symbolic goal, as he was, to Kiriko's knowledge, the only one who is still alive from her community that she once had back at the orphanage. Essentially, Robin represents the familiar love that Kiriko has been missing for a good majority of her life. Or you could say that he was her missing nakama? So I wanted to reference One Piece for the longest time. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Kiruko's want of reuniting with Robin comes into conflict with Maru's romantic goal, as not only Kiruko doesn't reciprocate his feelings, there are moments in the anime where Maru can't help compare himself with Robin, seeing that Kiruko holds him at a high regard. You may call this envy, sure, but I see it as a bit more complicated than just Maru is jealous of Robin, as not only is revealed later on that Maru doesn't fall in love very easily, but also his romantic love towards Kiruko is way more than just she pretty, I like he, holy moly, giving them You see, similar to Kiruko, Maru is from an orphanage. However, his origins splits off from here, as after the orphanage shut down, he was mostly passed around from caretaker to caretaker, from being paired with other kids with an adult who was tasked to protecting them, to the most recent caretaker before Kiruko being Mikura, who, despite being cold and distant, taught him about his innate ability of killing monsters with just a touch of his hands. And despite all of the caretaker he ever had, Kiruko is the only person he ever connected with on a fundamental level, as all of the previous caretakers and guards he had throughout his entire lifetime haven't reached the same level of care as she did. In addition to that, prior to this very first meeting with Robin, though he doesn't know the guy, he does recognize that he means a lot to Kiruko, and as such encourages her to go see him when they do find out about his whereabouts. In that moment, he prioritizes Kiruko's want and feelings first. So to say that he's envious of Robin, while maybe true, is also false on an objective standpoint. As for Kiruko, while her viewpoint towards Maru doesn't change as she does not begin to fall in love for him, she does begin to reevaluate her feelings towards him. Remember this statement she made way back in episode 1?
敬語対象以上の感情はありませんから。
Yeah, she does realize and recognize that she does care for Maru way more than simply just an acquaintance. Big shocker there, I know. Like I said, this doesn't make any change in their dynamic, but it does reaffirm them, as they rely on each other more and more as the season goes on, up until episode 12 when Kiruko manages to reunite with Robin. But I'll pull a pin right here and come back to it later, as while I still stand by my previous statement that these two fundamentally represent the theme of this anime, they aren't the only ones. Let's take a quick detour and explore some of the other characters that both Maru and Kiruko have met on their journey that also add into this conversation. Starting with this pair of lovebirds can be found in this futuristic establishment called the Takahara Academy, a place where high school misadventures of superpowered students are juxtaposed with an unethical scientific research on immortality by the closed-off staff and its leader. You see, with the kind of environment such as these that necessitates the staff to somewhat have a clear, severe boundary with the students they are watching over, it becomes obvious that the students themselves find love and community with each other. Unsurprisingly though, amongst this community that the kids have unknowingly founded, some end up experiencing romantic love, one of which is Mimihime. Calm, often chill with others, and having a surprisingly strong intuition to the point of it being a literal superpower, she ends up finding romantic love with one of her peers, Shiro, a smart, rational, and somewhat introverted individual. But ironically, I'll correct myself right now, as she didn't find romantic love found her. Throughout the anime, Shiro has been very explicit in his feelings for her, whether he tried to convey it out loud or otherwise. And yet, it took her a long while for her to realize that fact. Not to say that she didn't reciprocate the same feelings towards him, she did, but prior to that point, she was simply oblivious, along with the fact that she and practically everyone else were not aware of the concept of romantic love because the staff didn't bother to tell them about it. Though they became official, we don't get to experience their dynamic and banter as a couple. However, we do get their fate as to their ending. Essentially, if you've been paying attention when watching this anime throughout its entirety, you'll realize that Dr. Usami, a surgeon that Maru and Kiriko would meet in episodes 7 and 8, is Shiro, who grew up to unintentionally form a makeshift hospital where he would prevent the illness that transforms people into monsters by severing their infected limbs and replacing them with robotic limbs. Mimihime, meanwhile, still lives on with Shiro, but unfortunately, she'll be infected by the same illness too, to the point that her body is latched onto robotic contraptions created specifically to keep her alive. As the infection worsens, Shiro had no choice but to request the services of both Maru and Kiriko to relieve her from her pain through death. The death of Mimihime, while immensely tragic, was a peaceful passing, as Mimihime was able to pass on with all the good memories to look back fondly and with no regrets ever uttered. However, to say that Shiro was able to come to terms with this tragedy and move on would be a lie. Everything that he had done was all for her, for she was his reason to keep on living, his entire world. But she was gone, and so was him. A new perspective arose from yet another sudden and sharp tragedy. Maru blames himself. He believes that he's nothing like Shiro or Robin, like men who are able to help and protect those they love. He sadly believed that his hands only brings about death. But then, Kiriko consoles.
そんなこと言うな。お前が人食いを殺せば人が食われなくなってみんなの命が助かるだろう。
One thing I failed to mention in brief detail is the setting and the lifestyle of the people who live in this world of heavily delusion, to which I'm willing to provide. The date in which the second half of the story takes place hasn't been entirely concrete, seeing that its existence in chronological sense is hidden from us to solve. However, what we can convey is the grim fact that the second half of the story takes place in the dystopian ruins of Japan, where the remaining populace that are obviously alive have no choice but to adapt and cope in a world where nature has reclaimed its territories, and worst of all, said populace are cursed with the unfortunate knowledge that they can either be raided and attacked by their fellow peers for the sake of survival, or get turned into dinner for monstrous entities of all sizes lurking amongst them with tools at their disposal that can quickly end the person's demise in a heartbeat. Part of what I just said is hyperbole, but it's also not wrong given that we do see it happen in the anime. This piece of information gives us a little bit of context as we're greeted by numerous communities created to adapt and cope in this current harsh environment, from the tomato heaven to the marketplace and the makeshift towns. Interestingly, another example of said community has to be the one in which a hotel owner named Totori is part of, who kept their livelihood afloat by way of creating a false advertisement, promising their reservoir of water to be 100% safe, only to trap anyone who fell for the scam into a literal bear trap. Sure enough, karma would catch them lacking, as their leader and his team are aggressively mauled by the bear, and although Maru and Kiriko took care of the situation and managed to have them return them to Totori's community, her leader unfortunately passes away the very next day.
Boss, ダメだったって。今朝早くに死んじゃったって。 せっかく助けてもらったのにね。すごく丈夫な人だから絶対死なないと思ってた。仲間思いのいいボスだったんだけどな。まあ生きてりゃ死ぬこともあるか。
And lastly, a male-centric community of traumatized men who formed together after escaping their own crisis. To simplify that part of the lore, basically each of these men present here were kidnapped, imprisoned in a facility run by women, and were used as pleasure toys by said women. That very facility is largely abandoned in the current present of the anime, as an incident involving a monstrous invasion occurred, dispersing everyone in the process. Hence the creation of this male-centric community as they united after the incident. You would think that a community full of trauma-bonding members would live on peacefully, as they're quite literally free. But even that is coded with its own drama, as these men would raise a child of one of the men that escaped the facility long before it collapsed. His name is Mr. Juichi, who was able to reunite with his son after years of being separated from him, in part thanks to Maru and Kiruko. But unbeknownst to everyone in this episode, Mr. Juichi was actually on a revenge spree. As, surprise, after the child's mother gave birth to him, said mother, Mr. Juichi, and the mother's companion would try to escape the facility, only for one of Mr. Juichi's peers to snitch on them, hence him being separated from his child, and the mother along with her companion were punished to death. That very man that snitched on Mr. Juichi is part of that male-centric community who also participated in raising the child. He tries to apologize for his actions, but his fate has been sealed from the start. Now, you may be wondering, why would I feel the need to mention all of this? Simple. Each interaction present here played a huge part in Maru and Kiruko's dynamic, as each of them reinforced and evolved the relationship towards each other. Not only they relied on each other more and more, each interaction also contextualizes how these two feel about each other. And see, right then and there, this should have been an open and shut case. Narratively, structure-wise, it is a simple story from a one-sided relationship turning into a genuine camaraderie. Kiruko's want of looking for a Robin to reconnect herself with a missing act of love she's been craving, family love to be precise, but what she needed was Maru, as he simply became what Kiruko was chasing after in the first place. However, there is one big hurdle that needs to be overcome in order for this story to be cemented. In episode 12, after searching endlessly, Kiruko finally knows about Robin's whereabouts. She leaves for a building near a town, one of the supposed abandoned Takahara Academy facilities now turned into a base. Prior to all of this, through the Ministry of Commissions, she's able to book an appointment specifically to see him. While she's elated to see him after years apart, he was distraught for a moment. But he's happy to see her too, so let's not dwell on that. She explains everything she went through, including her body swap surgery done by Dr. Sakura, and Robin does the same, stating that he too is looking for Dr. Sakura, as well as his tutelage under Dr. Usami/Chiro and the birth of the town. These two easily reconnect like family members reunited after years of being apart. That is, until Robin suggests to Kiruko to take a shower at his place. She complies, but her clothes are now missing. She asks Robin where her clothes are kept, and he tells her that they are being warmed up in his room. If you've guessed it by now, it was a trap. Up to this point, Robin has been praised and looked at fondly by others throughout the anime. So to see this man, the same man who protected the orphanage and the people he cares for, take advantage of a defenseless Kiruko is truly disgusting and despicable. What even hurts the most from this revelation is that through the few scenes, one of which is a quick and you miss it, it is very evident that this is not the first time he acted this way. In this very moment, not only Kiruko has lost her familiar love and connection, but the person she trusted ends up failing her in the process. But like I stated earlier, she already found what she was looking for. I don't know what is up with Robin. Heck, I don't know of the adventures that maybe Hime and Shido went through up to where they end up. Nor do I know of the fate of all the kids at the Takahara Academy. I don't know what happens to Mr. Juichi, Totori, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if Kiroko and Maru achieved their own respective goals. The anime only had one season, but the manga it adapts from is still ongoing to this day. So who knows what happens right after the events of season 1. But I do know this. Loving someone is not just about cherishing the person you like and admire. It's also about supporting each other, understanding and aiding in each other's goals, calling out each other's mistakes, enjoying each other's company, fighting for them, and looking for each other relentlessly under the pretext that you simply care for each other. Regardless of whether it is romantic or familial, this is the very core of what an act of love looks like. After all, in a world where people can perish quicker, it is only through love that people can keep on moving forward.
Is it corny? Yes. Cliche? Absolutely. But it's also true and poetic. Oh fuck.